Okay, it is Thursday, February 27th. We've got yesterday's slate to cover, a ton of updates on the Matthew Stafford front, so much more. There's so much to get to. This is the Early Game Podcast. Listen to the show in the mornings on your commute, whenever and wherever, so you can be a part of today's sports conversations. Let's go. Okay, so yesterday's slate. We had a couple of interesting games yesterday. Big games. And let's start in the NBA. So the Pistons, the streaking Pistons, took on the Celtics. They'd won 7 straight. They beat the Celtics 117-97. They beat them by 20. They're the 6th seed in the East. I just want to say this about the Pistons. Not once, I'm 27 years old, not once since I became a fan of basketball have I had the privilege of a fun Pistons team and one that makes some sort of playoff run. They are the 6th seed in the East. Dear Pistons, please, 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 I am begging you, make a nice run this time around. This year, make it a little different. Please, I am begging you. It would be so fun. So we had the Pistons beating the Celtics last night by 20. I'm sure that whoever had the Pistons, I don't know what the spread was, but they covered whatever it was. And so that was probably a good. And honestly, for they were they're on a win streak, so I'd have to imagine people wanted to fade them with the Celtics. But the Pistons pull through. So for all bettors that had the Pistons last night, congratulations. In hockey, we had the Jets, the Winnipeg Jets, playing the Senators. The Winnipeg Jets were on a 10-game win streak. They're first place in the Western Conference, and they extended it. They beat the Senators 4-1. And ladies and gentlemen, this is currently the best record in hockey, the best record in the NHL. It's the Winnipeg Jets. So as I mentioned this yesterday, right now, the two teams vying for the President's Trophy are the Washington Capitals and the Winnipeg Jets. And if you told me that before the season started, I would not believe you. But no, it's the Jets. They've won their 11th straight. So we had 2 streaks, one in the NBA, one in the NHL on yesterday's slate. And one more game I just want to talk about here was Michigan State against Maryland in college hoops and college basketball. Game's tied at 55. These are 2 ranked teams, Michigan State and Maryland. Michigan State misses an opportunity to go ahead. Maryland misses an opportunity to go ahead with a couple of seconds left. Trey Holloman takes the ball out, heaves it from half court, scores the 3. My goodness, what a shot. And boy, you watch this and you are telling yourself, I am excited for March Madness. You get goosebumps thinking about it. March is upon us, meaning March Madness is right around the corner. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was yesterday's slate. Okay. I'm running here. There's a lot to get into today. There was so much going on yesterday in the world of sports. And let's start in the NFL. There's a ton to cover here from yesterday. I want to make sure I get to all of it. And the first thing is actually maybe the most recent. It was reported late last night that Abdul Carter might be dealing with an injury problem. And so this, I'm quoting straight from the article from Pro Football Talk. Carter's agent told multiple reporters that Carter has a stress reaction in his foot, has been consulting with doctors, and might get surgery to insert a screw in his foot to repair the injury. The recovery time for the surgery would be about 8 weeks. Rosenhaus, I think they're talking about Drew Rosenhaus' agent, characterized the injury as minor and said he does not expect it to affect Carter's draft status. Rosenhaus predicted that Carter will be the first overall pick. First of all, it's nice that Drew Rosenhaus wants to predict that his client will be the first overall pick. That's a nice prediction. And it could be true. We spoke yesterday about how I don't see the Titans. It doesn't feel like the Titans are going to take a quarterback in the end. And so that kind of leaves us with Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter. And the mock draft, Mel Kiper Jr.'s mock draft yesterday had them taking Abdul Carter 1 overall. So one person with the pulse on the situation has them taking Abdul Carter number 1 overall. The thing is, It's nice for Drew Rosenhaus to think that this will not affect his draft status. That sounds crazy to me. How does it not affect his draft status? A player with an injury in his foot. Foot injuries aren't just fluky, and inserting a screw isn't just willy-nilly 8 weeks. There's more to it than that. I'm not a medical professional. From my experience in personal injury law and trying to learn injuries, that way, inserting screws are not a simple thing. As personal injury attorneys, you almost count the screws. We used to value. Not we used to. Is I'm a pretty young fellow here. When I was working, I'm still in school, but when I was working, we would count the screws and say, if each screw gives us X amount of money for settlement purposes, we are going to ask for our client for X amount of money for however many screws we have. Amount of screws, X, whatever, times whatever amount of money, you insert whatever amount of money. That used to be how we would go about it. And so here, for Drew Rosenhaus just to say it's a minor injury, a something that requires putting in a screw is not minor. That is major. Screws are major. I understand he's trying to advocate for his client here. But I would be worried if I was an NFL GM. Coming in this early on in your career doesn't seem so promising to me. And so maybe the Titans rethink, if they had Abdul Carter in their mind at number 1 overall, maybe they rethink it. I could see them pivoting to Travis Hunter. Maybe they decide they're going to go for a quarterback. Or maybe they just decide we're going to take the risk on Abdul Carter. Could be. Maybe their medical professionals disagree with my personal injury experience, which is not that much. I don't have a lot of it. Okay, let's move on here. There's, as I said, a ton to get to. And so yesterday, it was reported that in the NFL, there will be now some sort of replay system to place first down markers. So how it will work is, and it's funny, we've been talking about robot umpires in baseball. This is kind of similar to how they will handle, how they're going to have robot umpires for balls and strikes is similar to how they're going to spot first downs and use technology to spot first downs. The system will be that the refs will still be calling the plays on the field, but they will no longer use the chains to measure first downs, and the system will be used just to assist on missed calls, similar to how ABS will do in baseball. And so this seems like a no-brainer. It doesn't make any sense that we completely relied on the subjective ball spotting of referees up until this point. Okay, let's move on. Again, as I said, there's much, much, much to get to today. And so yesterday, the NFL released their annual report cards from what players voted on for team facility, team coaching, basically just reporting on team experience. And so once again, the Dolphins finished with the best grade in the whole NFL, and that means that their facility, their coaching, their strength and conditioning, their travel arrangements, everything like that is taken into account. Now, the biggest jump from last season was the Commanders, and they went from the 32nd ranked team all the way up to number 11. And so you see, with a change in ownership, a change in executive and coaching, look how much can change in 1 year. And this is going to be, in my mind, how teams across all of professional sports will view ownership change and what it could come with, the positives it can come with, how it can reshape an entire franchise, and it could do so quickly. And that brings me to the team that had the worst grade, the only F, and that was the New York Jets. Bad grades in ownership. They had gotten rid of some dietitian that then went to the Kansas City Chiefs, and they had a high score, and the Jets had a high score for dietitian, I believe, last season. But they got rid of that guy. And so it seems like everything with the New York Jets is currently a circus. They can't get ownership right. They can't get coaching right. And they can't get the little things right either. And so people calling for Woody Johnson to sell the team, you have to think Woody Johnson looks at a team like the Commanders and what they did and think, look, I can get so much money for this team. And he would have to put his ego aside. The reason why it's not gonna happen with Wade Johnson is because there's no pressure for him to sell the team. There was pressure for Dan Snyder to sell the team. Woody Johnson has essentially no incentive unless he cares about the Jets so much that he will sell a majority in the Jets, take a back seat, and let them be a competent organization. I don't see that happening. Truly do not. But that's where we are, and that's the grade that the Jets walked away with yesterday from these report cards. Okay, we have tons of Matthew Stafford information from yesterday, and it was truly mind-blowing to me. There's a lot of Matthew Stafford, and there's a lot of Giants association, but we start out with another possible team that could trade for Matthew Stafford, and that's the Raiders. This story is less about the Raiders wanting Matthew Stafford and more about news breaking in the NFL world. So Jordan Schultz yesterday had initially reported that Matthew Stafford and Tom Brady were both in Montana meeting, and that this had something to do with Tom Brady recruiting Matthew Stafford to Las Vegas. Remember, Tom Brady is part owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. So after that report, Ian Rappaport tweeted, Raiders minority owner Tom Brady and Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford ran into each other at a ski resort in Montana, sources say. The meeting, unplanned, was not extensive or in-depth and did not include Brady hosting or recruiting Stafford, despite reports saying otherwise. Ian, Mr. Rappaport, I understand why you're saying this. I understand that somebody is probably telling you this. But there is no way they just ran into each other in Montana at a ski resort. I don't care how popular it is to ski at Montana. I don't care how many celebrities now own houses there. If the two of them ran into each other at Times Square, I would still be hesitant I would still be skeptical that it wasn't planned. This is insane to think that they both happened to be skiing in Montana. Insane. And so then Jordan Schultz responded back. If you really think Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford just happened to run into each other at a ski resort in Montana, of all places, at the exact same time, I've got a bridge to sell you. They were together over the weekend. It happened. Multiple teams are interested in Stafford, and Brady has been leading the charge to get him to the Raiders if the Rams decide to trade him. Oh my goodness. That is crazy. And again, I understand what Ian Rappaport's trying to do. I'm sure that he's being fed information from Tom Brady's camp. Again, there cannot this would be considered tampering. teams cannot be speaking to Matthew Stafford. But this story got even crazier. Pro Football Talk, this is the second time we're referencing them today. They then reported Jordan Schultz of Fox verbally accosted Ian Rappaport of NFL Media at an Indianapolis Starbucks on Wednesday afternoon. A report was made to NFL Security, which is investigating. This is wild! So you're telling me Ian Rappaport and Jordan Schultz got into a fight at a Starbucks? Over Ian Rappaport denying that that Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford had a planned meeting in Montana? That is crazy. Why is Ian Rappaport dying on this hill that it wasn't a planned meeting? If we're being honest, I already think that the NFL is going to fine the Raiders for this. And this is sort of the trouble that they run into with Tom Brady owning a team. Yes, there's trouble with him being a broadcaster with Fox. But in my mind, another trouble that they have is just how close and personal he already is with some of these players. And if he's not careful, and even if he was, even if they both just happened to be in Montana, right? He has to be careful about situations like these. Tom Brady, if he's serious about being respected as an owner, he is going to have to say to Matthew Stafford in those situations, look, we can't talk right now. It's great seeing you, but we can't talk. We're not going to get into anything. It's great seeing you at our Montana resorts that we just so happen to both randomly be at. This has not been a simple transition for Tom Brady into ownership. He's not doing himself any favors. For sure not. But who even lets this report slip that they met in Montana? I don't even understand how that got out. Which side is interested in leaking that? And still, we had more on Stafford yesterday. Dan Duggan tweeted, to further this, the Giants met with Stafford's reps in Indianapolis on Tuesday, per source. And so that's furthering that rumor. We have the Raiders and the Giants right now seem like the two most likely destinations. And the Giants put in their due diligence, but they did it with his reps. Something that is allowed, not considered tampering. And Art Stapleton tweeted, here are two scenarios of which I'm pretty certain. This is a beat reporter for the Giants. The Giants will make a strong push that is ongoing to trade for Matthew Stafford. If the Giants don't get Stafford, I believe prior to the April 24th NFL draft, they will trade up to number 1 with the Titans for their quarterback. And I mentioned this earlier in the show. The realization I've come to is that the Titans are not taking quarterback at number 1. They're just not. And it doesn't seem like they're taking a quarterback in this draft. Maybe later on, but it does not seem like they're taking a quarterback in the first round. But that shows that the Giants do believe in either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, but their number 1 option, they feel like, is Matthew Stafford. Do with that what you want. To me, there are two paths. These two paths. One is the obvious one to pursue. That's trading for Stafford, and the other one seems like a nightmare scenario to me. If I were a Giants fan, a nightmare scenario. Because imagine you compare Matthew Stafford, as we spoke about yesterday, with another first round talent like Travis Hunter or someone like that, and they already have Malik Neighbors, as opposed to taking a chance on one of two guys, Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, that seems like everyone is unsure about. And then ending up with just that guy and whatever they have now. Now, there was another rumor, and it's the third time we're going to bring up Pro Football Talk. They tweeted yesterday, juiciest rumor from the Combine so far. Aaron Rodgers has reached out to the Giants, which, if true, suggests he's not getting much of any interest from contenders like the Steelers. Ho, ho, ho. Imagine that. Imagine Aaron Rodgers staying in the New York, New Jersey area, staying at MetLife Stadium, not having to move homes, just moving locker rooms. That would be fantastic. And by the way, let's bring this full circle. Yeah, I'd want Stafford. Does it, though, make a little more sense if they're going to go in the direction of a veteran quarterback just to go with Aaron Rodgers? Sign him to a 1-year deal? That kind of makes a little more sense to me. And if you have a good year with Aaron Rodgers and whoever you draft, maybe you trade up next year and get a quarterback. If you like next year's class better. Or you draft someone a little later on, Jackson Dart, Quinn Ewers, who could sit behind Rodgers for a year. I don't see that as being a horrible idea. So now we have 3 possible scenarios for the Giants and their quarterback situation in 2025. I don't know which one I would prefer. The general consensus I'm getting from Giants fans is that Stafford is the one that they prefer of the 3. I'd love to hear, though, in the comments, which option do you want for the New York Giants? Okay. Let's move on. We move on to the NBA. Now, this story came out yesterday. NBA Central tweeted, breaking, Paul George is taking a break from podcasting to focus on a championship. Quote, I want to let the podcast Peep family know that after today's episode with Dwight, I plan to take a break from the pod just to focus on getting my body right, getting mentally right, and, help this squad make a push towards our goal to finish the season out, give ourselves a chance to be contenders, to compete for a championship. To me, it is crazy where we've come in sports media. I think it's great that all these players have podcasts, but you have the 76ers who are struggling mightily in the NBA right now. Mightily. I saw they were minus 3,000 to make the playoffs before the season started, and now they're like plus 300 or plus 150 or something like that. They're currently entirely out of the playoff picture. Still, they're 18 games under 500. They're 20-38. The 76ers are an atrocious, atrocious basketball team. Horrible. Now, they're only 2.5 games out of a play-in spot, so they really could make some sort of run here. My goodness, the play-in spots this year. I'm looking at the standings now. The Chicago Bulls have the 10 seed. They're 13 games under 500. 13. Every single team in the play-in is under 500. That just blows my mind. That's the current state of the NBA, is we would be having a team go into the play-in tournament. Right now, if the season ended today, they'd be 13 games under 500. I mean, that's just crazy to me. Wow. Wow. But anyways, the 76ers are horrible. 16 games under 500, as I mentioned. 18 games under 500. And so, yeah, Paul George, makes a little sense for you to give up your podcast, which is so unimportant, so distracting. Again, it's great that NBA players have their own platforms, can monetize them being celebrities. It's great. But at the same time, when your team's 18 games under 500, it's time to rethink. And good for Paul George. It's time to rethink talking into a microphone and dedicating time to that, and not dedicating time to what you're primarily being paid to do, and what primarily makes you a celebrity and what gives you the attention that makes it so that you can be successful with the podcast. Okay. That's a show. Jam-packed. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, follow on X, follow on Spotify. This is the Early Game Podcast. We will potentially have another jam-packed show tomorrow. It's the first day of workouts at the NFL Combine. I'm sure there'll be what's to cover there tomorrow. And we'll cover whatever stories we need to going into the weekend. This is the Early Game Podcast. Have a wonderful day.